listening to Changing Reality. Changing Reality, where we bend reality all across the world. Only on WQHS Radio. So, hi everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Changing Reality. Welcome one, welcome all. For all of you who are returning audience members, as always, we appreciate you joining in again and appreciate every single episode that you tune in for. And for those of you who are new members, where have you been all this time? Don't you know that this is the place to be? And for all of you who are new, Changing Reality is essentially a show that features phenomenal people from all walks of life who are, in essence, changing their own reality. And through the show, we have the opportunity to hang out and interview all kinds of brilliant individuals, from social change makers, entrepreneurs, even artists, musicians, and inspiring individuals from all across the world, and many of whom have spent some time here on the Penn campus as well. So, hopefully, by hearing their inspiring stories of how they managed to change their reality and the world around them through changing themselves, we'll be able to pick up little nuggets of wisdom that will help us shorten our own learning curves and help us shine light into the lessons, the trials, the tribulations that we're currently facing as we strive to achieve the goals that we want as well. And I wanted to do this show simply because I felt like there are a lot of people out there who do phenomenal things and make waves in the lives of those around them. And I'm super passionate about learning how they manage to do that in their own capacity so that hopefully we can replicate the lessons that they learned in our own lives and implement the things that they've already gone through, the things they've already learned, so that we are able to, as I said, shorten our learning curves, achieve the goals that we want faster and with a lot more impact in a sense. And this is something that's personally very, very close to my heart. A little introduction about me. My name is Harsha. I'm your host for this show. And at the same time, stories has been something that has been very central to my journey. So I actually founded and run a youth movement called Ascendance that started back home in Malaysia, but today is a social enterprise that collaborates not just with our Malaysian Ministry of Education, but has impacted over 28 countries to help provide an alternative education platform for any student who wants to change their reality. So we work with students from elementary all the way up to college through various sessions, programs, experiential learning activities, and projects that help them discover what it is that they love doing, learn about themselves and the world around them, and start their own careers while they're still in school that creates meaningful impact not just for themselves, but for those around them as well. And we've been very fortunate to date to work with over 50,000 students, almost 970 communities, and have incubated countless number of student-run projects, social enterprises, and so much more run by students as young as 8 to 25 years old. And this has been possible because of stories, because of kind individuals who've been willing to take their time out, share their experiences, share what worked with them, what didn't, in a sense, so that others may be able to learn from that, so that they are able to grow and they're able to get a head start in the things that they're doing. So, just like that, I hope that this show is that same platform for all of you, that by listening to this show, you are able to get the things that you need to essentially go to the next level, to be able to see what it is that you can be doing better, and that these stories will hopefully inspire you and educate you on the next step to take. So, building on from that, introducing our amazing speaker for today. She is someone who I think is an extremely brilliant, she's a dynamic, highly technical executive and inspirational leader with an international perspective. So she has over 20 years of experience in both startups, two large technology companies such as Verizon, Google, and much more in a sense. And she has a proven track record of partnering with customers, defining products, leading engineering teams in hardware, software, systems, so much more, and bringing to market innovative solutions that deliver value to customers and enterprises. She was extensively an executive experience at a multi billion-dollar business, and at the same time has developed many deep people and organizational skills, growing and management skills at the global level, and today coaches leaders, works on planning, and has so much more expertise to share with all of us here today. She was also a student who I think was at the Wharton School as well, having done her MBA there. And today she is the head of Global Network Edge at Google. So without further ado, let's welcome our phenomenal speaker, Sanyogita, to our virtual stage. Hello, how are you doing today?
Hi, Harsha. I'm doing well. and excited to be here and chatting with you today.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be able to talk to you because you just have such a lovely story. And as I was saying in the introduction, you have gone from startup to tech world. You've done both hardware, software. You both lead the team and have an engineering background yourself. So you are someone that I think is so inspirational for all of us.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, but anyway, like tell us, maybe start us off with your journey in a sense. So I'm so curious to see, where did you actually start? I know that you studied, I think, in the beginning in India, which, if I'm not mistaken, is where you're from, and you
Correct.
also, if I'm not mistaken, studied engineering, so electrical, electronics, and communications engineering, to be specific in a way. So how did you
Yeah.
even decide to do that? Why, in
I
a
know,
sense?
right? I mean, yeah, yeah. Well, I was what, all of 15 years old. I had no idea what really engineering was, right? I didn't have too many role models around me for engineering. I come from a family of doctors and teachers in the sciences, and so I really didn't know what I was getting into. All I knew is that I loved math. So and I knew that engineering was math heavy, and out of all of that, electrical engineering was one of the topmost desired majors. Electronics, it was called in India at that time. So I did the entrance exams, I did well, and I got into electronics. And of course, I joined the program. Initially, I was like, okay, this is a lot of physics and not really a whole lot of math. But then by the second year, I there was a lot more math and analytical work, and I really enjoyed. And by the end of it, I was so into all of this that I decided I want to study more, and applied to the US to come and do a master's. That's my story. So I really didn't have any role models. All I knew is that I liked this subject and I wanted to learn as much as possible. So that's my story. I'm fortunate that I had, at home, my mom who was a teacher, so aunts who went to medical school. So a lot of female, being successful and studying beyond just a regular degree. So that I was fortunate to have such role models, and that I could do anything that I wanted, and my parents supported that, and my family all around supported that. So I'm one of those lucky ones.
No,
And then when I
absolutely.
came here, I did my master's, and I thought I'll go work in the industry, but then my husband encouraged me to do a PhD. So we met in college, and he and I did a PhD together. So that was another fun 4 years at the University of Virginia. And it was a area that was growing, wireless and signal processing and communications. So I was lucky to be in that area. I really joined because I was interested in it, not necessarily knowing what opportunities there were. In those days, you really didn't have any way to really figure out what jobs there are around, right? There's no LinkedIn or anything like that. There were paper publications of job postings. So it was really more going by what you're interested in versus really knowing where they could be exactly jobs. So I guess that's my story. At least initially, that's what happened.
No, no, I think that's absolutely brilliant in a sense, and I wanted to ask that question. You studied all the way to PhD in engineering, and as you said, it's nothing in school can prepare you for the world of engineering in
Correct.
a sense. Like, as much as you love maths and all of that, it's not the
That's right.
same. So looking back, in a sense, what was the one thing about this field that caught you by surprise as you were studying, or something that was totally unexpected, whether it was a welcome surprise or confusing surprise? What was the one thing that you didn't expect?
Well, what I didn't expect is that how much this the technology that I learned in school, or the methods and the theory that I learned in school would be useful in practice, right? I knew that there are applications, and there are fascinating applications of, processing your speech signals, your image signals, your communication signals. But to the extent that the need for this type of technology has taken on, especially now with machine learning, the underlying technology is a lot of what I studied several years ago. So it's fascinating to see that the compute power that we have today is made possible. I mean, has made it possible to use some of these methods in more practice, and that's how you see a lot of machine learning, neural networks being implemented, and underlying all of that is a lot of the statistical processing and data analysis and so on. So that's been the fascinating part of seeing this. And I think more importantly, the jobs that are there today will not be there 10 years from now, and there are the jobs that are be here 10 years from now are not there today. So for example, um, many of my roles wouldn't have existed at all when I went to school, right? So having to, what you need to do is to learn to learn. That's what school teaches you. How do you acquire new skills? How do you go about learning new things? Because things are changing all the time. New technology, especially in the tech world, as in any world, things are changing so much that it's impossible to predict where you'll be and what you'll have to learn. So you need to be open to learning.
No, no, I think very, very well said. And kind of moving into your working career in a sense, as you said,
Hmm.
so many things have changed in a sense.
Hmm.
Tell me about your first role in a sense, moving from the academia world to now moving to the practice world. As you said, school teaches you how to love learning. How is it like? Did you have any sense of culture shock or like in like first year or first few months of adjustment when you started working as well, and what were the things that really helped you transition into kind of the world of engineering? I think you started as a senior engineer itself, and I think you did some
Correct.
I would say professor work as well in your early
Yeah,
career. So
yeah. Yeah, so when I was doing my PhD, I was pretty sure I wanted to go into industry, but by the end of it, I convinced myself that I wanted to go teach. So I went and taught for a couple of years, and then I kind of got the bug of, like, I want to do some real world work, right? So I took leave of absence and ended up working in industry. I was very lucky to be in a place where my boss was like so supportive and worked very well in bringing me up from this theoretical world into how things are done practically. So I was really lucky to have that job, and then more importantly, had colleagues, and we were like a cohort of freshly minted graduate students, or relatively few years of experience or very little experience, and we really hit it off together and kind of worked very well together, wrote documents and discussed. And so it was a really good transition into the working world, into industry. And then from there on, I went to Bell Labs. I was there for 2.5 years. So the first company that I joined was relatively small, and then going into Bell Labs, it was a really big company, and I was like, I was not sure I wanted to be there for a long time. So I went back to startups, a couple of startups, right? I really enjoyed being at a small company. So then I joined another startup, which kind of went out of it ran out of funding. It was the big telecom bubble of the 2001, and they lost the funding, and so I was there for only about a year. By then I had had one child, and I was pregnant with a second one. So I said, okay, this is a great opportunity, and I went back to a different startup closer to home, and I was there for 5 years. So again, one of the early employees, was there for like the first 10 employees. Learned a lot. Did a lot of work with venture capitalists. Presentations. We were trying to get sell the company. So a lot of that due diligence work that we did with larger companies, trying to acquire us. So many different experiences, growing a team, hiring people, figuring out like how to pivot when things were not going fast enough. How do we go back and look at new markets? So working closely with all of those was a great experience. And that's when I decided that I want to go to business school and go, be an entrepreneur, hopefully one day, and be on the business side. So applied to Wharton, and I did my MBA, executive MBA, with two kids, and a very supportive husband, and a very supportive community, and a very very supportive family. I was able to get through, and then I had, of course, had a great time at school. I'm still in touch with all my friends, my study group, and they have been on and off, a great bedrock. Bouncing off ideas, getting advice, coaching, asking questions. So that they're such a great resource for me even now.
I guess then I'm gonna ask the very controversial Wharton question. I have to, in a sense. But what was the, like, I would say, the biggest or the most valuable thing that you kind of took away from your experience at Wharton? You mentioned, the peers, the group, and all of that. But how did you really make sure that you utilize the environment, the people, the resources around you, and how did you take that with you as you progressed in your career afterwards?
Yeah, being able to work with the team, and trusting, creating that trust with the team, as part of study groups, as part of homeworks, looking at something from different angles. Right, when you're in the tech industry, we're surrounded by engineers who kind of think alike, and maybe you don't get all the viewpoints. So being in a class with 125 students, a lot of them, many from the finance industry, from the pharma industry, doctors, engineers, nonprofits, startups, big companies. So it was great to be in that type of an environment where you had, and of course there were people who were in the military before. I was a captain. He was a submarine captain, brought very different perspectives
I
to
can
the class.
imagine.
Yes, and I'm still in touch with him, right? He still gives us advice, gives a lot of us. Saying hi to Ron there. And fantastic, highly accomplished individuals in class who had built companies even when they were like teenagers. So a lot of different skill sets, and in being able to be in that environment, and learning from them. I think that was the most valuable. Of course, I enjoyed. I had never taken accounting before, so accounting was interesting. It was one of my toughest classes, I must say. And then a law, on macroeconomics, like fun classes. Did learn a lot about how to think about the macroeconomics, geopolitics, and all that. I've always been interested in it, but the classes really added a lot more. Negotiations, leadership classes, yeah. So a variety of stuff. Of course, finance. I had never studied finance as well. So corporate finance. How do you look at businesses? How to do your portfolio optimization? Although I may not use this on a day-to-day basis, having that sense of how to think about how you bring value to the company. I think that's the skill set that you learn.
No, amazing, amazing. And I think, like, that brings, like, that's a very interesting conversation in a sense. Because finance is something that is so central, I think, to the whole pen community. I think all of us get bit with the finance bug, at least a little bit during our time there. So tell me a little bit about how did having that finance background help you in your very highly technical, like, career, in a sense, because you are more towards, the tech side and things like that. So was there any value in having kind of this financial background, and how did you kind of bring that information and knowledge into your career?
Yeah, well, you're always, even though in a technical role, right? I mean, I had to manage people. We had to, pay attention to the OpEx. What CapEx. We it was my role at Verizon was, involved a lot of capital spending. How do you do trade-offs? Build business cases for different technologies, right? Like whether this is better versus that is better. So you can't just You can't just go by performance. You need to also see what value it brings overall, to the company, right? However you evaluate it. So being able to do business cases, being able to evaluate NPV, opportunity cost of doing stuff. So all those become extremely important, because it's never just a technical decision, right? Because in the real world we have to weigh trade-offs, right? Yeah. If I can, I mean, this project versus this project, which is important, right? And as you're in management, you need to be able to have an intelligent conversation around that, and be able to quantify the benefits of it. So understanding that, and being able to put it in terms that that satisfies the corporate finance, the chief financial officer, and his team is going to be important. So when you go ask for a budget, okay, I need to hire 5 people. Why do you need to hire 5 people? You need to be able to justify that, right? I need ten
So
million
you have all
dollars.
the ROI for each person, okay?
Absolutely, absolutely. You can't ignore that. You can't ignore that, because money is limited. Money is never free, right? There's a cost of capital associated with it, and especially these days, with interest rates so high, the cost of capital is high. So whatever you're doing, it better be giving you back more than what you're paying for it.
No, very, very well said in a sense. And as someone who, has not had the best finance background prior to Penn, I think it's something that I'm learning as well. I'll take this as some inspiration to head towards finance in a
Yeah,
sense.
no,
Because
that
you're right.
it's
Even if I
I mean,
don't, yeah.
mhm.
No, sorry. Yeah, and moving into the rest of your career in a sense. After that, I think you started at Verizon, right? So
Correct. Yeah, well,
that
during my
is
MBA
another
is when I started. Yeah.
really okay. So even more. Oh my god, how'd you balance all your things? Okay, that's another question in a sense. So number
Yeah.
one, I would say the question of balance is also something I want to touch on first before we get into that. So as you said, working MBA at the same time, you have a family and all of that. How do you make sure that everything was held together?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think having a good support structure is extremely important. Like I said, my husband has been extremely supportive. Um, I got childcare as needed. I'm not trying to, I didn't overly stress out about not spending enough time with the kids. Especially like when I grew up in India, I grew up in a joint family. My mom was working, my dad was working, and I had grandparents around. So I was comfortable with entrusting the kids to, to, like, it takes a village, that they say, right? Friends, family, childcare providers, au pairs, all that. I utilize those resources as much as I can without feeling too guilty about it. I Sometimes we women tend to um, you know um, put undue burden on themselves, saying, you need to be there all the time. In my experience, at least my 2 cents after so many years, is that children are very resilient, and there are a lot of women who work full time, especially in countries like India and Africa. They don't have the luxury of spending time at home with the kids. They have to almost always, right? And I think we can raise balanced kids. The kids learn to be independent. So that's how I worked through the system. And then basically being disciplined, waking up early in the morning, studying for a couple of hours, or staying up late in the night. And my social life was limited during those 2 years, but then I made it up by spending Friday nights with a whole bunch of good friends at Wharton. So it made up for that. So in for that 2 year time period, it was difficult, like no vacations and stuff like that. So you just have to prioritize and try to do the best you can.
Definitely. And I think that's not just, for someone who has as many things as you did, but also for all of us, the discipline, the prioritizing. It's something that we can all learn
Mhm.
from, in a sense. Moving into, more on your career, in a sense. When you were at Verizon, I think it was a bit of a shift. You had previously startup experiences and all of that. And
That's
Verizon
right.
is this huge, big company. How Tell us a little bit about that navigation, that shift, in a sense. What was different
Yeah.
about it, and how did you kind of get the ropes of both, and be able to do your best, because you were phenomenal at Verizon. I think you clear you I think went up the ladder very, very quickly. So how did you manage to do that, and how did you kind of, what did you need to change from your previous startup experiences and mindset to be able to do that?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. Actually, again, same thing, right? I mean, I went from I was at a startup, then went to Lucent, but then again, I went to a startup, and then back to Verizon. By then, I was much more experienced, but I came in at a higher level, so building those relationships in a company that a lot of people were had been around for a long time. So it was initially it was challenging. Luckily I had support, mentors around who said, don't be afraid to speak up, right? Although I had so much experience and all the qualifications, it was also I didn't have the context for a lot of things which were like processes, jargon, terminology, and all that, right? But mm, luckily I was able to parlay a lot of my experience into coming up to speed quickly, and some things that I pushed became successful, or at least we gave the company options. So that was a good thing, and I also tried to collaborate, right? I have always been a collaborative person, and with that I was able to build relationships which continued to pay in the following years in the different roles. So once I was successful in that area, just because I kind of knew the industry well, and I knew where we wanted to put the energy. So I took some risks and started some programs. And while we weren't able to totally take advantage of all of that, it was enough for the company to see that okay, there are alternatives, and we were able to negotiate other things to using that. So that brought me to a different role. They asked me to take a bigger role in a different team, and there I built a team all over again. I was given like two people, and I built a team all over again. So I've been trying to do that. I'm trying to question the orthodoxies, and trying to bring in new ideas, at least question, has been something that I have tried to do throughout my career. That's why I was able to um, build new areas, new teams, and go into some uncharted territory, and somewhat of a risk taking, I guess, but it worked out.
Okay, I think that is very, very like a very, very nice answer. I think I have so many questions from that, in a sense. Like, first of all, I love that part you mentioned earlier about having the experience but not being familiar with the necessary, maybe the jargon or the technical kind of, very specific to a particular company,
Correct.
like processes and procedures and all that. That is something that I often face as well. Like I was very fortunate. I started my entrepreneur career young, so I know a lot of things in experience, but I have no way sometimes to communicate that in either theory or in a technical manner, in a certain aspect, to a group of people in an organization, or in like a community that is far removed from that experiential portion that
That's
we have.
right. Yeah.
So how did you learn how to do that? Would like did you at one point in time realize, okay, these people are not getting what I'm saying, I'm not getting what they are saying, in a sense? Like, how did you start being able to learn the jargon, and how did you do that in a way that didn't make you feel like a little bit intimidated or a little bit demotivated, in a sense?
I know, and actually that happens to me all the time. Like even now, right? I changed my job after many years, so I'm in a completely new environment. So I'm going through that again after a big gap. It is hard. It's not easy, right? So, um, but then I kind of remind myself that. Um, even without this jargon, right? Understanding each other requires a um, lot more of a Q&A. I don't think we all are on the same page. Many times we you say something, I may think it's something else. So I think taking time and asking questions, or one of actually during Wharton, I had an advisor. Like, I did the global consulting practicum. It was offered by the marketing department, so it was like it was optional, but we loved doing it. So me and a bunch of others, we applied and we got in. And it was like you go through like almost a year of a program. They assign you a company that is it's a real company that sale wants to enter the US market, or change the strategy in products they're struggling, or something like that. They're trying to reinvent themselves. So this was a company like that. So our advisor was from the community. He was not like he was a part-time instructor, and he would say, why, ask why. He would ask why. I mean, this was an experienced person. He had started companies, so it was, and it was good to see him ask that why question, right? So I think why, asking that question why, don't be afraid to ask that, I think is, or tell me more. I think that's another way to understand the viewpoint, or get more elaboration on what this person actually means, right? Or rephrase what regurgitate what you think you heard, to make sure that you are understanding the way the person is communicating. So especially in this global world where all of us come from different backgrounds, different languages, and different experiences altogether. So even in the tech industry, even within the tech industry, right, there is difference. So you can imagine across industries, the same word doesn't mean the same. So I think I think we should be all comfortable asking those questions. It's easier said than done. It requires a lot of practice, and yeah, don't be afraid to ask those questions, because nobody knows all the answers.
That's very, very comforting to hear, especially the part where you said the same word can sometimes mean different things when, like, in the same industry. And I think sometimes we forget that it's not us that's the issue, it's just how things are in a sense. It's
Yeah,
just small
the world
facts
is very
like this.
complex. Yeah.
Oh, yes, that's the world is very complex. I should get that on a t-shirt. Very, very nicely said. Tell me also, yeah, a little bit about, you mentioned building teams in a sense, and you've had to do this a few times in your career, and
Yeah.
especially in the context of this wider kind of global organizations in a sense. How do you really find the people that you can work with, especially when they're being the founding kind of team of a particular department that you're setting up, or a particular project that you're setting up? What do you look for, and how do you know if you can work with someone?
Yeah, that's a great question, right? I mean, I think it's a combination. So typically, what I have done is, um, you get people that know how to work the system internally, right? Or have experience, have the relationships, or know how to build those bridges, are trusted people in the company, but also augment it with new talent from outside, right? How do you evaluate that? Well, I mean, it's you have to go, of course, interviews are something, and then you spend time in quality time with that person, and kind of see how the gut feeling. Make sure you talk to the team. Maybe you have them talk to different parts of the team. Make sure they're asking the right questions, because many times a job description on paper is not really complete in it by any means, right? I think the real job is many times quite different than what you put in on paper. So um, the candidate, I would love the candidates to ask the questions like, who am I going to be working with? Can I talk to people that I'm going to be working with? Who are my partners? Who's the in where am I getting the inputs? Where are my outputs going? So all those things, I think, you should be asking this question as an interview candidate, right, to get a better idea about the role. So I would say that part is extremely important. And And I try to have candidates speak to multiple people, so as to get a better idea about what they can expect in that role. And Other than that, of course, have they shown initiative in roles? Do they have the right experience? Sometimes they may not have the right experience, but you feel a sense of, okay, this person will be able to pick it up, right? Have that confidence that you can pick up a new area, because I mean, I myself have been given a chance many times, so I would love to kind of reciprocate that, take a chance on somebody who you think can be successful. So it's many times it's not exact qualifications, it's also how the person fits the role in the team and how it fills the gap in the team, right? What, you have so many skill sets. What I'm looking for is this person who can fill the gap. So
I love that in a sense. And as you said, the job description never just the job itself, like full justice. The description is like a 2D representative of a 4D interactive thing that
that's
you have
right.
to do.
Yeah.
So
and then
definitely, yeah.
and then jobs change too, right? I mean, you come in and maybe somebody is leaving or taking on a different role, and then you need to be able to change. So how quickly will you be able to adapt to a new, maybe an expanded role or a new role, or a change of role? I think all those things are important, because it's not a static environment.
Yep, yep. And especially now, I think when the tech industry itself is so volatile in every aspect, in a sense, there's new technology coming in every day that is changing every single thing we do almost on a weekly, if not monthly basis, in a sense. And at the same time, there's always, like the finance aspect of it, there's the people aspect of it. Everything in the tech world seems to be going at super speed, at least in the last 1 or 2 years. I'm sure it felt like that over the last few years prior to that as well. So I
Yep.
think like another question I have is, you in Verizon itself for 15 years, I think you've had much more experience in the industry itself before that. What are the biggest changes that you see that you think people don't talk about enough? We talk about the tech changes, we talk about the size of the companies and all, but what are the things you have seen inside that nobody really seems to be sharing about out there?
Well, I think the industry itself is changing, right? Like when I joined to by the time I left Verizon, like the wireless industry, the landscape changed quite a bit. We are at a point in the industry now where almost all of us have one cell phone or multiple cell phones, and then there is the IoT industry that is slowly emerging. It took a longer time. Like some things took longer than what was expected before, and how much we all depend on our cellular connectivity. It's amazing, right? I mean, I'm talking about specifically this particular industry, since you asked. As far as culture, the in general, larger companies are now less formal in many ways. There is a lot more. Um, how can I say this? Like, people used to wear formal clothing before, right? I mean, this is like now, no, people don't wear suits anymore in some of these companies. So things have become much more informal, clothing wise, appearance wise, especially in the tech world, because the tech industry in the Silicon Valley, the culture has kind of spread across other industries, such as the financial industry or the telecom industry or the banking. I mean, all those areas now, people dress much more casually than they did maybe even 5 years ago, or 10 years ago. And of course, how much more we work remotely, right? Because that was kind of unheard of outside of the tech industry. Now it's much more common. So I think that's the thing. So specifically talking about the wireless industry, that's the big change. Um, and then talking in general about tech, the tech industry has essentially spread its culture across other adjacent industries.
So you're saying I should go and burn all my coats now? So I love wearing the coat, but I have like five different colors. But I'll retire them for you in a sense.
I
I'd
got
like to
rid of all
because
mine. But anyway, yeah, no, you should do what you feel comfortable with. So that's, I think, the important part. It's hard. Yeah, it's you tend to kind of conform to the environment around you, but you should also have your own individuality, whatever you like.
okay, okay, nice, nice. You also are now starting, as you mentioned, like I think in 2022 you became head of global network edge at Google in a sense. Tell me a little bit about transitioning into this new organization that everyone knows Google, one of the biggest companies in the world in a sense. I think their office is kind of like the Disneyland of like office spaces in a sense.
Hmm.
So a lot of people have perceptions about how it's like now. Tell me a little bit about how it's like for you transitioning in to this new role, as well as what can all of us who are in this very volatile tech industry, who I think are also transitioning into new roles, learn from your experience in a sense? What are the lessons that you've learned in the last year and a half in a sense of doing that I think have become much more relevant now in the last few months?
Yeah, yeah. Well, I changed job during the pandemic, so not being able to have that personal, in-person interaction was somewhat of a challenge, and of course, I was also remote. I think take the opportunity to go build relationships, talk to people, put time on people's calendars, and spend the time to get to understand people. As far as Google is concerned, yeah, I mean it's a very different company from Verizon. My role is also quite different, so I've been learning a lot more. But that's why I changed, because I wanted to get a different experience with a different culture, different set of constraints. And a different environment that operates differently. So in a lot of ways, it's Google builds a lot of things by themselves. So the puts and takes are different. When I was talking about the projects, right, prioritizing and all that becomes extremely important, because you're building the stuff yourselves. And then also, getting to know people has it's been fantastic to hear different viewpoints and different backgrounds, people coming from different backgrounds. The some of One of the challenges has been also, not everybody is back in person, so being able to keep the team together in this mixed environment, and growing the team, hiring people in different parts of the country or different parts of the world even. It's changed quite a bit in the past 3 years during the pandemic, right? So that's probably what I would say is one of the challenges at this point. uh, as I don't know if I answered your question.
No, definitely. I think you at least answered during the first chunk of it. And as we wind down, in a sense, I think moving to that second part, for everyone now, and I'm speaking not just for your experience right now, but you've had so many brilliant experiences from the engineering point of view, from the startup point of view, from the huge Fortune 500 company point of view, in a sense. Bringing together all the experiences you've had and looking at the way the tech world is right now, with a lot of uncertainty, a lot of people not sure where they belong in this world, and like getting laid off and having to kind of bounce back. What is your advice for everyone currently going through that, in a sense, to weather the storm and find their place once again?
Yeah, the advantage of being in the industry for such a long time is I've seen two cycles of downturns, right? 2000 and 2008. Fortunately for us, the last 10 years have been it's just been on the rise, right? There's no downturns. So many of the people like you who have entered the workforce in the recent past haven't seen a downturn. But this is natural. This is a natural cycle. I think you have to remember, like I said, when I was pregnant with my second child, the company that I was lost funding. So but another door opened. So they say one door closes, another opens. I think you have to just keep positive and keep look at like where you can grow in the meantime. Take the opportunity. Again, it's easier said than done. You get stressed out when you don't have a job, but keeping it in perspective that this too shall pass. This too shall pass is important. You will find you will find the right role, probably even better many times, right? So I wouldn't get overly worked up about the possibility that you may not have a job in the future, or layoffs. I mean, layoffs, unfortunately, they are a part of this economic cycle. And so you almost have to be always prepared for it. Be keep learning new things, keep current, and be flexible. Be flexible, willing to take a lateral role, or maybe even a step below, because it's before you know it, you will be able to bounce back.
And I love how you put that in perspective of, the last two economic downturns. So just because we had it easy for the last few years, in a sense, doesn't mean it's not normal. Okay. I think that's a very nice way to put it. And I know personally a lot of friends who've been panicking about this recent, like, few months, in a sense. So I think I'll
Right.
send them this interview, and hopefully it will give them some form of, no, I'm serious. Like earlier just go, oh, okay, it's not like all doom and gloom. This will pass, and as you said, it's just one of part of the economic cycle. So very, very
Yeah.
nice said, and I think a very high note to end this off on. Thank you so much for being on the show. You are
Thank you so
lovely
much,
to talk
Harsha.
to.
I had fun. I hope your viewers, your listeners will find it useful too. Always love to go back to Penn. I mean, every opportunity I get, I try to go back on campus. So I love being a part of the community. So thank you for inviting me.
Thank you for having the time to come on, and we'll definitely see what we can do at getting you back on campus sometime to share with more students. But I really appreciate you taking out your time today, and as always, hopefully this was as impactful to our audience as it was to me, because I learned a lot, and to our audience as well. Thank you all for joining us. This has been Changing Reality, and we'll see you again next week. Bye.
Bye. Good luck.
You're listening to Changing Reality. Changing Reality, where we bend reality all across the world. Only on WQHS Radio.